I'm with Constable Len at St Clement. We've just been discussing it. The smallest parish, but second largest population. How do you think that came about?
Well, I think mainly because it was convenient. A lot of flat land near the town. Going back to the early part of the last century, of course, the railway coming through, and just an increased demand for housing. And it was convenient and expedient, so it happened. The
headline of the JP today is possible population of 140,000. Is there any scope for more houses to come in St Clement?
Well, what the parish, generally speaking, is against is large-scale inappropriate development. We've got no problem with development per se, and there's one being completed now in Plataway Road, another one near the golf course, and there's going to be a sheltered housing project of 40-odd houses at the other end of the parish. So in appropriate places, not a problem. What we don't want to see is any more green zone or open space taken up, and we will continue to resist that as much as we can.
Is it resented here that places like St Mary and St John have got very little housing development? Is that?
No, I don't think resentment is the right place, but I think there is a recognition in the parish, and now I think that recognition is seen somewhat more island-wide. The St Clement has made a terrific contribution to housing the population of the island, and if there is need for significant more building, then the state should look for possibilities elsewhere. And of course they've already started this process by concentrating on land and sites which are already in state's ownership, so hopefully...
Of course, the more population you have, the more rates you collect. That's in some ways beneficial, allows you to do more things.
Well, really that's down to the parishioners what rate is set and what services they want for the rates. But I mean the rates are there simply to administer the parish. So if you have more people to administer, okay, you get a bit more in, but it costs more to do it. So it probably comes out pretty even.
Pretty much domestic rate, not a lot of business, commercial activity going on.
No, not a huge amount. I mean, there's a number of shops, a little bit, very tiny industrial estate, but nothing significant. It mainly comes with.
Presumably schools don't pay a rate, do they?
No, they don't.
No.
Well, not the state schools.
It's 10,000 people living here. I don't know what the breakdown of age-wise is, but quite a lot to administer. You've got quite a hefty parish honorary force, people, procurers, honorary police, different people. How many altogether?
Oh, I don't know how many altogether municipality. It must be, I would guess, between 50 and 60 in the municipality. I've never sort of added them all up.
How many paid employees?
There's four people who work in the office. We've got 2 outside staff and a sexton who is based at the church.
Right. What's the overall budget, annual budget that you raise from rates?
It's now just over £800,000 for the parish, but we also collect the island-wide rate, of course, which we pass on to the treasurer.
How much do you save every year from that?
Save?
Then you win a kitty. Have you got a rainy day fund at St Clement?
Oh well, we have. We've got a reserve. We've got a reserve of something like £400,000. That's in made clear in our annual accounts. Like last year, we had a very small surplus of about £3,000. So that goes into reserve, and that can be used in the future if necessary. But of course, you've got to remember that the financial year runs to the end of April. We don't start collecting our rates till July, August, September. So we do need a reserve, otherwise we'd be running on a deficit, which would not please the ratepayers, because we'll start earning interest charges.
You're twinned with Concal, which is a bustling town, obviously next door to St Malo, much bigger than St Clement, but obviously noticeable difference is it's got a real heart a double heart to Concal, because it's got a port and an inner town up the hill, if you can walk up the hill. St Clement lacks a central hub. Why is that?
Well, it didn't used to. We used to have the village near still affectionately called the village of the church, which was the centre of parish life, if you like, which had the church, the parish hall, a pub, a shop. All that's gone now, except for the church. And you're quite right. There isn't a particular centre. I know as the estate is redeveloped, they're hoping to put in more community facilities and social facilities such as cafes and so on. So hopefully that might become more of the social hub, if you like, of the parish.
There's no scope to make more of a social hub around this parish hall, because notice you've got a bit of bowling or...
Yeah, a lot of things go on here.
Yeah.
A tremendous amount of events go on at the parish hall, much more than it ever has done in the past. You know, there's clubs and associations and social groups in the parish use it quite a lot. And as you said, we a couple of years ago created the petanque terrain on the common at La Hoc, and that's been tremendously well used. In fact, it was only last year we had to double the size of it because of the demand there was for it. So that's been successful. So there's a lot of things going on. Heck of a lot of things going on.
It's quite busy. I mean, I get the magazine. I live in St Clement. I get the parish magazine, which is called La Marage, and I've never quite understood why.
Now I did know. That's right, because I'm told that in French it's the anchor, and of course our symbol is the anchor.
I should have worked that out.
Yeah.
But I mean, the magazine is quite a buoyant scene going on here. It's a certain age for the most part. You get that feeling. Most activities in Jersey are a certain age. The younger people seem to slip under the radar somehow or another.
Well, yeah, I mean, young people tend to do their own thing and less interested in politics generally and in parish administration as well until they get a little bit older. I mean, they've got much more interesting things to think about and get involved with. But we do see a lot of young people involved in parish affairs. In the Honorary Police, for example, we've got about 3 officers who've come in fairly recently in their 20s, which I think is marvellous. And of course we have our Missing Clement competition, which is always a great event. Always a reasonable number of young ladies enter that, and the current one, she really gets herself involved in all the social events of the parish, which is great. But you're quite right, but it's true of all aspects of life. The administration of the island, it tends to be the older people who tend to
there was a Liscay Youth Club. Does that still exist?
Very much, yeah, very much still is going very, very strongly indeed.
What maximum age is that to go there, for instance?
I think, if I remember right, I mean that's run by Education or the Youth Service. I think that goes from 6 or 7 years old up to 18, something like that. And obviously different age groups on different nights, different activities. I
think like lots of people, especially people from like myself from outside the island, parish life doesn't mean a great deal to me, but the focus on looking at the role of constables in the States has rather made me look at the parish and try and say, well, what does it actually do? And it obviously is a valuable institution. 12 parishes looking at it. It's very cleverly put together, I think. And it would be a shame if the certain institutions disappeared. But the role of constable, you're unique as far as the constable is concerned. You've come out and said that they shouldn't be in the States.
I said they shouldn't be in the States as of right. What I said was, what I would like to see is the States comprised of all the equivalent of deputies based on parish boundaries. And it's important it's based on parish boundaries, because anything that comes forward as proposing super constituencies, for example, is an absolute deal breaker as far as I'm concerned. There's no way I could support that. But if the constable wanted to be in the States, and if he could stand for the States, and if his parishioners wanted him to do both jobs, they could vote him in to do both jobs. But it would be much more democratic in the sense that I think the individual would make a choice whether he wants to be constable and in the States, and the parishioners would make that choice. And there's good reasons for it. It was quite simple. Quite simply, I don't think that a constable needs to be in the States to be an effective constable. And I know many people, I'm not talking about just St Clement, who would love to be constable but won't stand if they've got to be in the States.
Have you any idea how the parish boundaries came about?
To be honest with you, no. But I mean, they seem to be based on streams and brooks. So
because looking at it, because obviously you're not going to get. You've got 12 parishes. You can't jiggle the constituencies so they're all going to have 2,500 voters in each, or 5,000, whatever the figure is. But you could jiggle the parish boundaries a bit to take in a group of houses, say from here, if necessary, Grooville could take a few St Clement's houses. Do you think there would be outcry if that happened?
There wouldn't be an outcry. There'd be a revolution. Because you were saying how important the parishes are, and you know, our history, our social life, our cultural life has been based on the parishes. And it's so very often when people need to move house, either upsizing or downsizing, most people will try and stay within their parish boundaries, because there is a great affection for the parish in which you live. Okay, you can move out and you can learn to love a new one. But I think to try, I mean, I can see the logic of what you're saying, but I think emotionally, I don't think it could happen.
My own preference would be for single seat constituencies, small, 2,500 votes, that sort of size. That would almost work. It wouldn't matter to me that St Mary's would have a smaller number. I don't think that's that important. No. But I think it would be, to me, that's the fairest way. Do you think that would work? Is that a workable solution?
And in the ideal world, that's what you'd want. You'd want single-member constituencies. I'm not sure if that would be possible. Well, it depends on the number of states members you have, of course. If you reduce the number to 25, 30, it's probably possible. If you keep it to what Clothier recommended, which was 40 to 42, that might be more difficult. You might have to have a small number of 2 or 3 seat constituencies. And that I could live with. But the moment you get to more than that, if you get 4, 5, 6 or 8 seat constituencies, as we're going to have with the senators in 2014, it becomes much more of a lottery who gets the final 2 or 3 places, which isn't, I think, good for democracy, because people always vote for the 1 or 2 people that they really want, and then will vote for others that they might just want.
You're especially unusual because you've been a deputy senator and a constable. You're the only person in the House who's done that at the moment. You said somebody before had done it.
Yeah, Bill Morgan and Sir Lawrence did it a few years ago.
Which of those is the most onerous task from your experience?
Well, it depends on how you measure onerous. I mean, certainly the constable's role is busier in many ways because he's doing the 2 jobs. If you're a deputy, you're a states member only. If you're a senator, you're a states member only. If you're a constable, you are a constable and a states member. And if you're in the States, I think you should be prepared to take on any of the roles that are available in the States if your colleagues want you to do that. But that tends not to happen because it's recognised that you're very busy in your parish. Probably, I just remember when I was being encouraged to stand for senator, one of the sitting senators said to me, "Yeah, you want to go for it. It's much easier being a senator because you don't get all the constituency calls." And you know what? He's absolutely right. So of course you still got calls, but not the same number as you did when you were a deputy, which is quite interesting.
How many years have you done as constable now?
I'm just about to complete my 4th year.
If the constables didn't have a right of a seat in the States or a voting seat in the States, is there scope, which is one of my pet theories, that the Committee of Constables, the Constables Committee, could be its own sort of a lower house to develop much more cohesion between the parishes? In other words, the parish committee constables, they already meet once a month or so, but that could be more regularised, open meetings, open agendas. They could consider things that were going on in the States, and if they want to comment on them, they could do. Is that an attractive proposition?
Well, they do meet. They don't. They very rarely discuss particular propositions that are coming up in the States unless there is a particular relevance to the parishes as administrators. But I suspect that they would continue to meet and continue to try and be reasonably constant and fair in the way that they administer their various parishes. Could it be more
formalised? Could it be part of a structure that is a requirement that they...
Well, it is a legal requirement at the moment that there is a supervisory committee, and also I think now a committee of constables, so that the framework already exists, but I'm not sure if it needs to be formally part of the government of the island, if you like.
Parish like St Mary's, only a couple of thousand or less than 2,000 population, I believe. The constable there could know all his parishioners. You've got 10,000, you can't know them all. And how many of them you do know?
I've never counted them, but probably more of them know me than I know them.
Right.
Now it's very difficult, and new people are coming in as well from all the time. So it's not possible.
Is it difficult now, or less difficult, or more difficult to recruit people for the parish jobs, the honorary jobs that need to be filled?
Well, touch wood and fingers crossed. When I took over 4 years ago, I went to my first police meeting, and there were 9 or 10 people sitting around the table, so I asked, where was everybody? We're all here, Mr. Constable. That sent some warning bells to me. But now we're doing very well. We've now got 21 or 22 police officers out of a maximum that are allowed of 24, so that's been very, very good. Last year we had elections for the roads committee, for roads inspectors. So, you know, there are people who want to come forward and assist the parish in his honorary capacity. We've also got a community support team, which is technically not part of the municipality, but there's something like 30 people, more than that now. I think there's about 50 people ready and prepared to, you know, to help others who need assistance. It
is a traditional way of doing things. I mean, from the outsiders it looks rather quaint, and but it does seem to work, that honorary system running a parish.
It does. I mean, you know, because it's honorary, people do it because they want to do it, because they've got a real keenness about it and a real affection for their parish, and, you know, and want to make a contribution. And if people want to do something, they'll do it well. That's generally the rule.
The other officer, I don't know if you discussed it when you went to see the electoral commissioner. I don't think it was an issue, but the crown officers, the role of the bailiff and the estates and so on, from my perspective, they wouldn't be in the States. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I'm quite happy with the situation as it is. I mean, the biggest bone of contention with some people is the bailiff sitting as president of the States. Now, when the Clothier proposals came in, Clothier himself advised us not to cherry pick. So if there had been a referendum on the Clothier proposals, I would have supported them, and that would have meant that I would be voting for the bailiff not to be president. But I don't see that as a major issue. In fact, in many ways, it gives a certain credence and gravitas to the States. But if it were an elected member, I wouldn't have a difficulty either.
We started off by looking at the possible population expansion, and strangely I happened to have one of your old manifestos when you were standing for senator. And you had already done several years as president of what was the old housing committee.
That's right.
And memory serves me well, it was you that introduced the rent rebate scheme for private landlords then.
Yeah, what we did, we extended the scheme, which applied only to States tenants at the time. And that actually, I got a little bit of hot water with some States tenants because we reduced the subsidy that they were receiving, but allowed the subsidy to those in the private sector as well. Because I'd always taken the view that whether you're a States tenant or a private sector tenant, on the same income and the same family circumstances, you should be entitled to the same benefits. You have the same needs and aspirations. I don't see why a States tenant should be treated better than somebody who's renting in the private sector from the housing perspective. But in any perspective, really.
I mean, in use of the word social housing, which nobody seems to be able to define accurately at the moment, it does make all housing which is subsidised in any way social housing in a sense, doesn't it?
Well, it's not that under the current rent rebate scheme, it's not the housing that is subsidised. It is the individual who is responsible for paying the rent. But social housing, as far as I'm concerned, basically is rental housing for those who are unable to house themselves in the private sector. So we're talking basically about the state's properties and the housing trusts. I
would like to discuss housing especially with you for much longer, but unfortunately we haven't got the time. But I noticed it was a theme when you were standing for senator. It was a big theme in your manifesto about housing. And what is remarkable about it is the housing situation hasn't got much better, has it?
When I took over as president of the housing committee, we had 1,000 families on the rental waiting list, and we had 1,000 families on the first-time buyer list. When I left 5 years after that, there were 200 families on the rental waiting list, and everyone on the first-time buyer waiting list had been offered a property. So things did get better.
What went wrong afterwards?
I'm not going to criticise my successes, but perhaps the eye was taken off the ball a little bit.
As far as the if you want to look into the crystal ball, what's going to happen with constables? Will there still be an election for constables to sit in the States after the current electoral commission? Have you got any projections?
Well, it's pure speculation, isn't it? That my guess is, if you're expecting a lot of change, don't hold your breath.
We'll stop there. Thanks much indeed.